There's a reason why we go through life the way we do. Even in our spiritual life, you grow up as a child and you grow in it. Having that from the beginning, I'm not so sure that would be a good thing. The thing with me is that I've never been much of a fear person. I haven't really feared or had anxiety until I got 50 and my physiology started changing. I had no clue what was coming in that season, but I didn't have fear. So when I made that decision, I had big dreams. I had the expectation that something good can come out of this. The problem was that I was always relying on my own knowledge and my own effort. So what I'm learning now in my spiritual life is take that step back, listen, and be obedient, and things will go better. When you feel stressed that you should be doing more, that's when you should be doing less. I'm sitting here looking at the birds and they're getting fed. So, God feeds them. He's going to take care of me too.
Hello, everybody. Hello, masterpiece makers. Welcome to another episode of the Making a Masterpiece podcast. I am your host, Norbert Elnar. And today, guys, this topic is very close to my heart. It is exactly, when your career path becomes so uncertain. And normally in this transition period, we find ourselves in a crisis that leads us into this feeling of looking for a calling and being on a mission. And I can personally relate to that. And so we brought in our special guest for today, who's walked the journey and who has built an incredible business online. And now she's aiming to really help fund street children in the Philippines. Joining us today on our show, Veronica Kiefer. Hello, Veronica. How are you?
Norbert, I'm fine. Thank you. Even though it's rainy and dreary outside here in Europe, it's nice to see you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And as mentioned in our introduction, a lot of our masterpiece makers find themselves in this period of a crossroad or a transition when one thing worked for a long time and then suddenly it has to change and they find themselves a little bit uneasy, and you know how it feels. So, and I just want to start by honoring your journey because you've spent a significant season in the corporate world, specifically in the airline industry. And we know that God never wastes any season in our life. Could you take us back to that time, sharing what you actually loved about your work, and then walk us through how you navigated that difficult realization that this specific chapter of your life was about to end?
Yeah, that was 20 years in the airline industry. It's funny how different life looks now. If you go back, what you were thinking and what you were planning and what you thought life was about and what you thought it would be about. I did not have the education to go to corporate. I had a handicraft. I wanted to be a fashion designer. But I realized quite early that that might be difficult. And I also decided I wanted to kind of travel a little bit before I really started working. So I ended up back in the States. I was born in the States, lived in Sweden for 8 years. And then I got a job at the airlines. And I didn't really get an interview. They just told me what I was going to do. So I kind of got in through family, So it's like, how did I end up in the airline industry? Because that's really not what I was planning or even thinking about. But I did. I loved it. I was in 3 different places. I had the opportunity to move from one city to the next. It also took me to Europe. It's also where I met my husband, who is Swiss. And we decided to come to Switzerland after 5 years or so back in the States, I think. So I was quite young when I came here. And yeah, I continued, had the same job basically, but in a different language, which was a challenge in itself. It was amazing to be of service to people, which I didn't realize at the time, I think. But it was like when there was a problem, I jumped on it. And it's like if I could help someone fix something, then I felt like I did something good. Then it's like, okay, the day is over, the flight is gone, everybody's happy. It was like a feeling of getting something done for other people as well. And then we decided to have a family. And that was a little bit harder than we planned. So 14 years after that moment, we adopted a little boy from the Philippines, which happens to be the same island that you're from, which is amazing in itself. And that was really a big change because I was also older. When I was younger, I thought I'd work full time, having a child. Of course, I lived in Sweden and America, 2 of the most emancipated places in the world. But when you get older, you see things a bit differently. And I was so pleased that that could finally happen. So yeah, I left corporate then at a short time and then went back again and worked for 10 years in different industries and learned new things. which was a challenge also, but it's always nice to learn new things. But I always realized it was always some kind of service or helping somebody finish their job made me feel like I did something good. So I think that was one of the underlying satisfaction that I had in corporate life. So yeah, that's kind of how I got there. And it was like, now 30 years down the road. And I left 5 years ago, which we've talked a little bit about up till now.
Now, let us go back into that moment when you said you left corporate world, because a lot of our listeners also have a similar situation. When there's a stable paycheck there, there's a sense of security. For you, was it a decision you had to make, or why did you have to leave corporate?
Well, I think most of the times when I left a job, it was because I was kind of put in a corner somehow. Sometimes I think God kind of closes the door because I've kind of not seen the open doors for a long time. I think we stay comfortable somehow. When we know something, we know how it works. We get the same paycheck every month and we kind of stay there, even though we don't pay attention to that inner rumbling somehow, that you should change something. For me, I needed, to really have a slap in the face in order to make a change and notice that it's time to make a change. This one kind of was a hard one. During COVID, I just started a new job, which I enjoyed very much, but it was not my industry. So there was a lot of technology and things that I didn't really know, but it was okay. There were other people who had the responsibility of taking care of that. But during COVID, quickly, we had to go home. And of course, I was learning from a distance and all these things. And after almost 3 years, 2.5 years, had a conversation with my boss that was tough. That was really tough. And it really made me realize how this may not be the place I'm supposed to be. Not just because of the knowledge of what they do, but because of how I felt inside. It was a mental pressure somehow, I guess I felt. And I had a big birthday right before. And that didn't make me so happy because then you realize when you turn 50, it's like, wow, more than half my life is already gone. So after a few months of really, really going through, I've had my really low times in life. And during that time, I found out I was helping my son because he had ADHD, and at school he was really struggling. But I recognized a lot of things he was going through, and then I realized I have ADHD too, and I got diagnosed. But for me, it was a blessing to hear that because it actually explained a lot. Not just not being able to have attention on something or forgetting something, but the emotional part of it and all the other symptoms that I had no idea about. So knowing that and seeing what my son had, I just thought, you know what? I've been in this enough. I've been tied to an office chair long enough, satisfying other people's needs. I want to satisfy my family's needs. But I did it not as a strong, I know what I'm going to do person. It was more like, help. I need to get out of this. I need to focus on them. I just don't know how.
Wow.
So I left not knowing what to do.
Okay. First of all, thank you for sharing that, because I think I'm listening to you. I can just imagine people finding themselves in your shoe. This whole mental battle inside your head that you're like, there's something wrong with me. You said it yourself when you got the diagnosis. It felt like it was a relief for you and almost like a sign of freedom, right? Now, it's one thing to leave a job, but it's another thing to entirely reinvent yourself in a completely different field, moving from a structured corporate world into building an online business from scratch. This massive pivot into the unknown, especially when the world tells us to play safe. What was the internal wrestle or the internal ramblings for you in making that decision? And I'd love to hear about what were the doubts and fears that you had to overcome internally to be able to actually step into that season?
Yeah. I think sometimes I personally have to end up in a very low place to make that decision. And I can say that I was there. I needed some time off. I took time off to really think about it, talk to my husband about it, prayed about it. But, I can't always hear what the clear answer is there. I mean, we don't always, but we do feel like a thing in our heart or in our soul that tells us not that direction, not another job. I mean, on top of that, I was having a lot of brain fog issues because of my age and the change that I was going through together with ADHD. It was like a bomb. So just imagining going to a new place to learn something new scared me a bit too. And it's just like,
For sure.
well, I don't want that pressure. I want to do something new. So I think I forced myself to walk into the unknown. Just basically say, okay, I don't know. But what I could do is find something online, meaning I loved being home during COVID. That for me was a clear sign that I liked the freedom. Sure, I had to work during a certain hours, but I could also decide to work at night and then have 2 hours off at lunchtime. It was okay for my job at that point. So I looked and I looked and I thought, okay, I'm going to go back and do a master's degree, even though I'm scared to death I won't succeed in translation because of, all the brain issues I was going through. And I really enjoyed it, but I cut that off because I realized AI is coming. A lot of things are changing in the industry, and there's a lot of very qualified, hardworking translators out there. I don't know if I can compete. So I was searching and knew I did not want to come up with something completely on my own. A lot of people who have so much knowledge in certain areas that they can sell their IP and they can make programs and they can do all that. But I was not in that situation. I needed something that would be simpler, preferably, just kind of slide into it.
A
And
plug
that's
and
what
play almost kind of
yeah,
thing.
it's a plug and play, and that's what I was searching for. Of course, I didn't quite know that's what it was. I just wanted to find something simple, maybe not easy. I can work hard. I don't have that problem, but it needed to be simple. And that's what I found by coincidence, which I don't think was a coincidence. It's always a God incidence where those things happen.
So that's really, really brave of you. And I know a lot of people at your age, or even those who are really just starting their careers, are probably find themselves deep into that fear, like it's incredible that now you even launch your own podcast, which is a major achievement, by the way. We know that sustaining these kinds of things require a tremendous amount of energy, especially when you sometimes said it yourself that you have all these issues and limitations, may it be physical, may it be environmental, whatever it is. And for those who are in a similar place, building something new and managing these things is exhausting. And can you share to us your top 3 strategies or specific habits or routines that help you show up on a very tough day? I think we all need to hear this.
It's funny because I kind of juggle that. I'm one of these listen to every podcast, read every book, try to figure out what the best solution or the best system is. I've always been a systems person. Same thing when I worked in operations. So it's like, okay, find the solution and then just do it. I found that I change from one period to the next. I have different systems. So I'm not the one that gets up at 5 a.m. and reads my Bible for an hour and prays and starts the day well. I do read it, but like 3 hours later. I'm not a morning person. And no matter how people say you get more out of your day when you get up in the morning, I just stay up later because I can work in the nighttime. It's weird, but
It
just,
doesn't
I
work
notice
for
that's
you.
for me. Yeah. So you have to find a balance. But for me, of course, since I actually started reading the Bible more and understanding more of my faith, I was kind of like sailing on that because when you're in corporate and you were flying around the world to meetings and stuff, you just didn't have time. You didn't take the time. I should have, because that would have helped me a lot, I think. But, if you have God on your management team, what can go wrong? Because that helps you already just feel you start the day well and in your way. So that's one thing I would never give up. But yes, putting systems into place is important. And one of those things is figuring out what are your top most important things to do. When life is messy, there's no way you're going to come up with a new marketing system and say, okay, now I'm going to do all these videos and stuff like that when you're not feeling well. That's why I like podcasting, because I don't have to make myself up to do a regular podcast without video. So I stick to those minimum things, speaking to customers or leads, answering questions, doing the daily things that need to be done. That's my must-do list. It's like 20% that does 80% of the most important things. So I have that as a list of things that I need to do, and it's a very short list. Yesterday or the day before, I didn't even open my computer.
Wow. I love
I
that.
did what I had to. I chatted with a few people who asked questions, and I could even have a call, but I didn't open my computer. So that was okay.
Wow. You're actually telling us to keep the list short and then do it
Yeah.
well. Oh,
Yeah. And of course, sitting in a call like this would be hard on a day where I felt like I did. I'm kind of in that situation where one day I wake up and I feel fine and the next day I don't. And I don't know why. Because sometimes I'll just say, today is not the day to force myself to do things that are not necessary. Today is the day where I answer people's requirements and making sure the needle moves forward, and that's okay. So that probably is the most important thing to me. Now, that thing could be different for different people, but I think answering customers has always been a priority for me. I remember one day at KLM in Atlanta, I was sitting and answering phones on a Saturday, and I think I answered 151 calls. And I don't know, not even the 8 hours I was working, because I also had to go to the aircraft, so it was like, okay, just answer those questions, get it done. So that I can do. But yeah, and then you sit back and you listen to yourself. And I think that might even be one of those three things, strategies, is when you're feeling like you have to do so much and it's really messy, instead of trying to do all those things, take 2 steps back and get your helicopter view and really look at, what are those most important things? Do I really have to do it today?
Years ago, I started a personal journey to help provide professional creative communication solutions to brands born out of faith and big dreams, but running on limited resources. Before finding my true calling in ministry, I was an advertising professional, and I always felt frustrated whenever a great idea, product, service, or community initiative didn't take off simply because branding wasn't a priority. I've seen too many faith-oriented entrepreneurs and nonprofit leaders make this mistake because they don't have access to professional creative services, or they are put off by the high cost and consumerist approach. I decided to use my experiences in mainstream advertising and in ministry to bridge the gap. The result is a 6-module branding course that can help transform brands, effectively tell their stories, reach their audience, and help them achieve their goals. Teaching this to business owners and leaders, I've seen it transform confusing concepts into real brands that cut through the noise and make real everyday impact. I believe that brands can be a blessing to the world, solving problems and easing burdens, fueled by passion and driven by purpose. That is what we aim to do with Masterpiece Kingdom Brands. If this resonates with you and you're ready to uncover your kingdom brand, let's connect. Sign up for the Masterpiece Kingdom Brand Building course today. Listening to that is like really a wake-up call for everybody who's listening to us now. I mean, you mentioned, I think, based on what you said, the 3 things that I could take away from that was like, number 1, you need to have that, you find the rhythm, the balance of the rhythm that you've mentioned. You're not a morning person. Why force it then? Just because some other people say that that's the way to go, you don't have to. Then the second thing that I took out from what you said is also like setting your priorities and keeping them short and realistic. You know what? Guilty as charged, because sometimes when you have like 20 things on the list, and honestly, it's impossible sometimes. You just can't. And then thirdly, I think what you said is also what I truly like and believe also is to manage the energy. You need to learn how to manage your energy because, yeah, today is the day. Today, I'll give myself a chance to take a break. And because I think most people don't give themselves that opportunity. What can you say to that? Because I think you've been in the corporate world, you know how it feels. And now you're living the entrepreneur life. What is the most significant trade-off that you think you enjoy more now?
Oh, what I enjoy more is the freedom. There's absolutely no question to it, because the way I felt yesterday and even the day before a little bit, it's kind of up and down, I could not have done had I had a job I have to go to, if that's in corporate or if there's some other job. It's just the freedom to be able to choose when you work. And that has changed a lot since when I was younger and worked at the airlines. You didn't have online jobs back then. You either opened your own business, but then you probably had longer hours. So the freedom is number 1, because I also have the time to focus on things, not just earning money, which you need. I need to replace my corporate salary. That's something I need. The family needs. But then to imagine that you could even find something that can give you the support to do more than what you just need, but what you would like to do. And a lot of that has to do with what we've been doing for many years, is supporting organizations in the Philippines. because it's just when you're there and you're picking up a little boy who you imagine may have never been able to have the opportunity to be adopted, and you see all those other children who don't, you can't just not do anything. So that's my passion project, and that's why I chose a business online where the potential is a bit higher than just, your 1 or 2% increase that you have when you go to corporate every year. So that thing, of course, helps me also put my priorities into order and keep going. To have a proper purpose behind what you're doing makes such a difference.
Speaking of passion projects, speaking of purpose, speaking of alignment, can you tell us a little bit more about your podcast and why you decided to do a podcast and what is it about and how can our listeners get hold of that?
Podcast was something that I did not even talk about until maybe last year when I listened to a few of them. And it was because I needed to be fed. It's because I was searching for the information. And I enjoy just listening and kind of I'm not the book reader anymore. So I like listening to audiobooks too. And then I never considered I'd be a podcaster. I mean, what would I say? I'm no expert in anything. I have experience in a lot of things, but I don't know. I have experience, but what would I talk about that would help other people? But then it kind of just popped up in front of me and it wouldn't leave. So I looked into it and I just said, oh my gosh, I had no clue that I could use this for this reason, to help other people. And I do believe every single one of us has something that can teach other people something. The question is, if we dig deep enough to find what our calling is, what is that calling that we can give to other people? And a podcast is a great way to do it because you can listen at any time. People who listen to podcasts enjoy being learned, whereas when you're scrolling on social media, it's like a half a second and then they don't even listen to what you're talking about. And you're fighting with all these other people who are trying to have space. So podcasting, it's fun. I never thought it would be. It's a different thing and I enjoy listening. So I know that other people do too, because I have my followers now and it's growing and it's still new. I talk about business systems. I talk about having an online business and how it is to have that extra support. A lot of people want to have a second income stream, not necessarily do what I did, which was exchanging it, which I didn't even know I would do, but it helps people maybe to see things that haven't gone through what I've gone through yet. And then they maybe can learn something from what I have done.
Wow. Shameless plug, everybody. I will put it on the show notes. I just listened to one of Veronica's podcasts on like the 5 quiet marketing strategies. It's worth the listen. So I will put it on the show notes.
It's short and sweet. You don't have to listen for half an hour.
Yeah, it's really short and sweet and it's packed. And that's what it's really, really, really cool. So we'll make sure that would be in our show notes. Veronica, it's been an incredible time talking to you. And I'm sure our masterpiece makers listening to us have also been inspired by your story. And just to close our time together, my last question would be, if you could sit down with that version of yourself today, knowing what you know now and the faith that you have now, what would you tell your younger self in that last day of the corporate job? What words of wisdom would you speak over her? And what would be a dream that you would want to plant in her heart?
It's funny. It reminds me of that movie Benjamin Button or whatever it was called, Brad Pitt, where he got younger instead of
Younger,
older.
yeah.
I can't remember. And somehow, I don't even know that I would have anything to say because we have to learn it the way we learn it. There's a reason why we go through life the way we do. And even in our spiritual life, you grow up as a child and you grow in it. Having that from the beginning, I don't know, I'm not so sure that would be a good thing. The thing with me is that I've never been much of a fear person. I haven't really feared or had anxiety until I got 50 and my physiology started changing. I had no clue what was coming in that season, but I didn't have fear. So when I made that decision, I had big dreams. I had the expectation that something good can come out of this. The problem was that I was always relying on my own knowledge and my own effort. So what I'm learning now in my spiritual life is take that step back, listen, and be obedient, and things will go better. Just, when you feel stressed that you should be doing more, that's when you should be doing less. So Maybe I could have relieved myself by telling her that back then. Just say, it's going to be okay. I'm sitting here looking at the birds and they're getting fed. So, God feeds them. They're going to take care of me. He's going to take care of me too.
Oh,
Faith.
wow. Thank you so much. That was so good. Very, very heartfelt. And I'm very sure our masterpiece makers felt that too. Veronica, can you please invite our listeners to your podcast and where can they connect with you? If they want to know more about your online business, how could they get hold of that too?
Yes, I do cook people. So that's kind of what I do. I invite people to join me. My podcast is called Crafters Online Business Playbook. And it's not just for crafters, but because I love crafting. Yesterday, I sat and knitted the whole day. So I have a new half sweater. But to help a lot of people who are trying to sell things online with small systems, but also if they want to have a second income stream on the side. Because many people dream of not having that job, but they cannot afford being at home. And there are so many opportunities out there. And I found a very good one I would like to share to other people. I do have a website which talks about that, but the podcast talks about it too. The website is Vekija, so it's VEKIJA.info. Put that in the show notes, I guess, huh? And yeah, I'm everywhere on the podcast. So far, I've put them on the major ones and then they get spread out to the other ones. So I think you can find it pretty much anywhere, including YouTube.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Veronica. Masterpiece makers, if you found that conversation very inspiring and encouraging, please don't forget to give us a rating, subscribe or like, or share. Most importantly, share it with somebody who needs to hear this conversation. And again, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been an honor talking to Veronica, and it's been an honor serving you at this podcast because in this show, we are obsessed to make sure that we build your faith and inspire your business. My name is Norbert Elnar, and this is the Making a Masterpiece podcast. See you next time.